Why don't we go ahead and get started on the presentation here. This is a work session overview of the Town of Normal Comprehensive Plan. A most impressive presentation of a document here.
A little heavier than usual,
Yeah,
too.
it is. A little more to it. I will say that it's probably filled up my reading queue for the next 2 weeks, but I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to turn it over to Basu from Pina Majaro from Regional Planning to start off and give us an overview, and then we'll take questions at the end of their presentation. Basu?
Is it okay?
Very good.
Okay. As long as you're all seeing our presentation. Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to 2040 Town of Normal Comprehensive Plan presentation. What we are hoping is, first of all, we apologize. This is going to be a long presentation. We tried to condense 300 pages document into a 45-minute presentation. Good news is you don't have to listen to me talk all 45 minutes. It'll be distributed among 6 of us to add some interest. One thing I will say before we launch into the presentation is many of you, as part of your planning commission duties or council duties, have witnessed previous comprehensive plans. What you'll definitely notice is this is a plan that's not of yesteryears, but very much future focused. And we hope by end of this presentation today, those 3 simple words up there, complete, connected, and compact, will have a renewed meaning for all of us and become our mantra for growth and development in this community. Before we actually launch into the presentation, I do want to recognize people who really contributed a lot to make this plan happen. I'll start with my staff first. McLean County Regional Planning Commission staff, I'd like for you to stand up and please be recognized. They've put in a lot of hard work over the last 24 months. Thank you very much. I also would like to recognize Krista Kanushi, who really helped us make this otherwise bureaucratic document into this pretty amazing looking document. Thank you very much, Krista. I'd like to thank town staff who spent numerous hours working with us on this over the last 24 months. And I would like to thank all the town staff who participated in steering committee, who sat through many long interview sessions, without whose help the depth of this document wouldn't be the same. I'd like to particularly thank Mercy Davison, Town Planner, Greg Trummell, Inspections Director, and Mark Peterson, City Manager, without whose help we would not be here today. Thank you very much, you guys. Last but not the least, I would like for many volunteers who gave their time, talent to this process over the last several months. If you were part of Vision Committee or the advisory groups, please stand and be recognized. I see a lot of you. Please don't be shy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Without further ado, thank you. I think we skipped the presenters. So who you have with you is a panel who actually participated very heavily in this process. Mercy Davison, Town Planner, Terry Legner, IT Director, Michael Straza, Entrepreneur and Angel Investor, and Erin Kennedy, Manager for Center for Healthy Lifestyles, and also Chairperson for McLean County Wellness Coalition, and Harriet Steinbach, Assistant Director for Center for Community Engagement and Learning. I'll try not to waste too much time on this slide because many of you have been part of the process all these months. What I will say about this process, every step of the way, we had number of community members involved. It was not done in isolation. This is a plan that's truly done by the community for the community. And what you probably have heard a couple of presentations of phase 1 and phase 2. Those who are streaming in who want to look at those deliverables, they're available on our website, on Planet Normal website. And this is the final phase of that presentation, of that process. Oh, go ahead. So this one word really, I think this one phrase really describes the context in which we made this plan. Absolutely strong foundation. And this is something that we've presented during our phase 1 and during the visioning process. Town of Normal enjoys what many communities only dream of. A very strong history of economic stability. We have ISU as a strong anchor, well-educated and young demographic, and most importantly, a very forward-thinking leadership, a long history of forward-thinking leadership that made many things happen that put Normal on a national map. We also fully recognize that this plan is being done at the time, at very uncertain times at state and national levels, on many fronts, social and economic fronts. And at regional level, we are also dealing with some uncertain times, which we'll cover later on. So vision and values, this has been presented to the council not too long ago, November of 2016. As a community with strong foundations, we landed on a very bold vision. We have a place for you in our vibrant, prosperous, and connected community. The U is underlined in here because this bold vision was focused on people. Whoever you are, this is a place for you in 2040. So that is absolutely a bold vision supported by very much human-centric core values. And there are two underpinnings within the vision that said that those should become the foundation for our future. That's sustainability and technology. So I'm going to turn it over to Mercy to talk about sustainability, and later on to Terry to talk about technology and how those are interwoven throughout this plan.
Thanks, Vasu. Sustainability, for a long time we talked about sustainability and we pretty much meant the planet. We worried about deforestation, recycling, air pollution. All those things are really important. But starting in 2011 here in Normal with the adoption of the sustainability plan, we really broadened that idea that sustainability is also fiscal sustainability. It's also social equity. Of course, it's the planet as well. But it's all those three things together that really make sustainability meaningful. If you look at our plan, the comprehensive plan from 2005, 2006, you'll find a half page dedicated to the natural environment. And that was very important at the time, and that was the way we thought. You're not going to find that in this plan. The point of this plan is that sustainability should be woven throughout everything that we do. All of our land use decisions, all of our programming decisions, all the services that we provide need to be sustainable fiscally, they need to be socially equitable, they need to be concerned with the planet as well. So we start with fiscal sustainability, and that's where we get to this idea of compact, connected, and complete. If we can design a community that is all three of those things, it will be the most fiscally sustainable model that we can pursue. We've grown as a community geographically at a rate that is greater than our population growth over the last few years. So we've basically spread out more than the number of people has increased. And we know what that means. It means providing services over a greater area, and it is just inherently less efficient, whether it's the above ground services like picking up garbage, police, fire, that sort of thing, or building and maintaining underground infrastructure, which is a real burden in the future. So when we focus on compact development done well, we will be a much more fiscally sustainable community. When we look at social equity, we get to the part of the plan that really is based on humans, the people who live here. We have to ask, what is their experience of being here? We know that people are not all on even footing in our community, so how do our land use decisions and programming decisions meet everybody's needs? And if we keep asking that question, we'll make better decisions. The last part of it, of course, the environment that we think of, we're clearly making strides in that direction. We have the sustainability plan, we have the bicycle and pedestrian master plan, we have Uptown and Uptown 2.0 with a heavy emphasis on sustainability. Our understanding of climate change and the effects of it are increasingly better known. So this plan takes that into account, and it's part of the conversation now. And this is something, again, the town has a lot of familiarity with, and this plan isn't doing anything new. It's just putting down on paper what we've been saying and doing over the last few years. So it's pretty exciting. And technology is the other key underpinning of our plan, and Terry gets to talk to you about that.
Thanks, Mercy. There's another consistent theme across the content of this plan, and that's the need for the effective use and growth of technology for successful implementation. Technology is no longer optional. In this day and age, it has become a utility, and we should treat it as such, just like our roads, our utilities. Technology is also critical for economic development. Be an Advantage identified 5 target industry sectors for our area, and all of those businesses, all of those sectors are heavily dependent upon the use of technology. We should partner with Serban and others to build quality and secure technical infrastructure across the entire community. This plan also calls for the town to become a smart city. What does that mean? Let me provide a couple of examples. Open data. We need to provide or embrace open data standards. Data, information is power, and that power needs to be unleashed to spur innovation. The town can take a lead role in this area. For example, the town gathers and stores just a ton of data, and much of it can be distributed for public consumption and for use across the world, frankly. In the spirit of collaboration, we should partner with ISU and other research institutions for data analytics. It's key for evidence-based governance, which is particularly important at this time when revenues are shrinking. Yes, technology can be disruptive. We're seeing evidence of this already. Online sales, the sharing economy, autonomous vehicles. The town can be prepared and should take advantage of these disruptive trends. For example, maybe we partner with Rivian to transport our built environment to be AV ready. We are an EV town. Maybe we can pave the way to become the first AV town in Illinois or the country. Technology is key to achieving many aspects of this plan. It can truly transform our public places. Wi-Fi in public places, real-time display of information in public places. It can help us become a compassionate city and achieve the goals that are set out in the humanitarian and social aspects element of this plan. Smart urban systems can help increase resource efficiencies. Smart metering for utilities, smart building, smart lighting, smart transportation. I'm sure you've heard about all of those. One thing is certain, change is inevitable and accelerating due to the use and growth of technology in our society. As this plan suggests, now is the time we must be prepared to participate, collaborate, measure, evaluate, and adapt. And now I'll turn it back over to Vasu.
Thanks, Terry. So the subject matters of this plan are discussed in under 7 elements. I'm not going to read these for you because we will be elaborating a little bit more. But what I'd encourage you to do as you're listening to these presentations in the next few slides is the word regional. None of this can be done just in Town of Normal or City of Bloomington or the county. So please listen for the word regional in the next several chapters. And now I'll turn it over to Mercy for housing.
Sure. So housing is definitely a regional issue. We often talk about people who live in Bloomington Normal pretty much live their lives without care for which side of the dividing line they're on. Whether they eat, work, go to school, it doesn't matter. They go back and forth all the time. I think when people purchase a house or decide where to live, they're looking at things like the size of the unit, the cost, maybe the school district. A lot of people really don't even think about whether it's in Bloomington or Normal. That's why it's a regional issue, regional strengths and regional challenges. So this chapter here is actually relying on the regional housing study, which has been underway now for many months. As you know, the town is partnering with Regional Planning Commission, the City of Bloomington, Bloomington Housing Authority, and multiple nonprofit agencies and institutions to study the housing situation in our region, come up with key findings and recommendations. So the town's comprehensive plan didn't want to recreate that whole process. So we're looking to the results of that study in our comp plan. So we can give you a little sneak peek of it tonight. The housing study itself hasn't yet been released to the public, but it will be going to the Regional Planning Commission in early November. So I can tell you in advance that the key findings of this regional housing study show that Bloomington Normal is currently overbuilt, particularly for single-family detached housing. Second, they found that there is a mismatch between the new housing supply and household size. Third, they found that McLean County is relatively affordable compared to peer communities. Not surprisingly, the issue of affordability is strongest for low-income families and seniors. Fourth, there are few housing opportunities for the homeless population. And finally, there are also very limited housing options for people with disabilities between the ages of 18 and 64. So those are the 5 key findings. These are issues that apply across the region. So what do we do about them? I mean, Normal can certainly do something, we just can't do everything. And our goal, of course, is to provide decent, affordable, attractive housing to people whose preferences are changing. So we're recommending several things in the comp plan. The first is we want to preserve the existing housing stock in good condition. We have really solid neighborhoods, not just historic districts, but just neighborhoods that are good, decent houses in decent condition. They're affordable, they're near good services. We care about these things. The second thing, we want to make sure we don't have any regulatory barriers standing in the way of the kind of housing we want to see. We want to make sure that if we have incentives, that they align with our goals for affordability and supportive housing. And we also want to look at our annexation agreements as a tool to diversify our housing stock. If we've decided we know what kind of housing we want in the future, we do have an opportunity in our annexation agreements, many of which are going to start expiring in the coming years. We have more than 3,000 units that we've approved on paper that haven't yet been built. And most of that development was based on a model that was very successful for many years, but it may not align with the goals of this new comp plan. So as these agreements come up, we'll just be looking at them and seeing where opportunities are. And developers themselves are already amending their agreements because they too are seeing some changes in the market. So there will be some exciting decisions to be made in the coming months and years. And housing is something that's going to be an issue as long as I work here. So it's pretty exciting. Next, we're going to have Mike talk about economic vitality.
Thanks, Mercy. Yeah, my part of this is the economic vitality. As you probably have been aware of all the different things going on in the town and the region, as we've been talking region, this collaboration, this participation. One of the efforts, of course, is the Be an Advantage that everyone's heard about and embracing. And one of the things that they are trying to foster is this vitality and growth and in building more into McLean County, just in the basically, sorry, I'm reading off my notes here, just trying to be more social and economic, have a more social and economic environment that can grow this economy in a better way. So one of the things is the goal I am supposed to talk about as goal 1 is the hotspots for startups. I've been an entrepreneur for well over 15 years. I've helped many companies from healthcare to technology grow in this town. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed that helped grow those communities and those businesses is collaboration with other people, community leaders. And as you look through this, there's a lot of detail about how do we collaborate as a city, as individuals, as in other groups that are out there. I think that's going to be the most important thing. And as we're talking about information earlier in the technology side, is that's going to help break those barriers down by taking all the information everyone has in their own silos and breaking those down so everyone can have the same information. And some of the information is just some of the basic stuff. Where's some viable places for these startups to be? We need a location. We need a center where people can go, be mentored, have abilities to get information about from loans to what technology is out there, who can help them, legal, all those things. And I think that is one of the key things is having a center location, but also having all these different groups be able to communicate. So not you're not running all over the town to find who do I need to talk to next, and then having an appointment that's a month out. These startups are very young usually, and they lack the resources. So the goal is to be able to give them the resources to grow this, to have this ability to diversify and to have other types of businesses than the ones that have been keeping us going for the last 30 plus years. And I'm going to hand it back to
Thank you. Last year, 4 agencies across our region came together to develop a comprehensive community health improvement plan that focuses on 3 areas: behavioral health, obesity, and access to health care. We had a couple of feathers in our cap, but we're at a point where we really need to focus in on policy systems and environmental change in order to improve our community overall's health. This comprehensive plan tonight is different in the sense that we're including health into this plan and how health and land use is critical when it comes to improving our community. The town of Normal has two goals. One is health in all policies, and the other is to be a leader in environmental stewardship. Mercy did a good job in identifying the environmental stewardship, so I'm going to focus in on health in all policies. As we take a look at some of these hot topics that we can look at, an example would be promote programs that encourage walking and biking. This is essential when we have safe streets and appropriate lighting. All of our safe routes to school and good to go commuter challenge and the public bike share program is fabulous. Another one is a Vision Zero, which is a traffic safety project. Identifies ways to reduce accidents, and so if we need to look at reducing speed limits, if we need to go look at traffic calming areas, we can do that. Access to healthy and local foods. Hunger is a health issue. We need to figure out how to have access via walking to get the food that we need. And so whether it's a grocery store in Uptown Normal or we're increasing community or rooftop gardens, those are just some examples. Mental health, mental illness, and mental disability. It's just an opportunity to promote access to green space, parks, and our Constitution Trail, of course. Focusing on safe places to be social and explore no matter what ability we have. And finally, blue zones, which be fabulous in our community. It's a nation, across the world, identified those that live longer and healthier lives. And so this would be a really neat certification to uphold in our community, not only for the health of our community, but also it would be a great way to drive tourism and growth and development. These are just some examples on how health and policy can boost a growing and robust community. But overall, we just want to make sure that we're simply making the healthy choice the easy choice.
Normal is a college town. This is not new information. But this part of the plan asks that we intentionally plan for that. And with that, two goals have emerged. The first being increased collaboration. Collaboration, I think we've already heard that from our other panelists, is a theme throughout all of the chapters, and collaboration with Illinois State in particular is reflected in most of the chapters. There are great examples of collaboration with Illinois State University. In the Town and Gown chapter, there's a nice chart of those, and we're going to go to the lighting ceremony when this is over, right? So another great example. We see those collaborations happening at the staff level, and the model example being the neighborhood action team. We'd like to use NAT as a model to increase staff level collaborations, but more importantly, we need to increase policy level collaborations. Illinois State recently cut the ribbon on its new Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning, which demonstrates the institution's broader commitment to its core value of civic engagement. In addition to the center, we also have our Civic Action Plan, which seeks to establish Illinois State as an anchor institution and collaborate with our other higher education institutions in the community, which aligns nicely with this Town Gown chapter. The other goal in this chapter is coordinated planning of land use. So this, for the first time, establishes the University Influence Zone, which you can see on the maps. This acknowledges ISU's land use and scope of influence as a result. There are challenges, but there's also lots of possibilities, including the overlap with the Innovation District and prioritization of infrastructure related to pedestrians, biking, and transit. Within the University Influence Zone, there are two areas that have been identified. One of those being University Influence Neighborhood 1. This is focused on making students feel welcome at home and acknowledging the student lifestyle. Then there's also University Influence Neighborhood 2, which seeks to protect and preserve affordable single-family homes. Now I'm going to pass it back to Mercy, who's going to talk about humanitarian.
Thanks. We've certainly mentioned many times that this is a human-based plan, and it really is. And I think the humanitarian and social aspects chapter is probably the most pointedly discussing those issues. We all know that the degree of separation economically between people is just widening and widening. It makes it very difficult for people to just have a decent life. And normal is no different. We're probably actually better off than most. But we know there are more people working in service sector jobs with low wages, maybe no benefits. We know more people are raising children well into adulthood with different sorts of disabilities. We know people have aging parents staying with them. People's lives are complicated. And there's not a lot we can do to fix all of those problems, but we certainly can make land use and programming decisions that help people out and that make things less difficult to some degree. So the group that formed around this topic was people that really had a big heart. And they came up with several goals for us to think about. First, we want to foster a community-wide culture of openness and empathy and equitable treatment for all residents. Again, that's a lofty goal. How do we do it? Some examples would include our increasingly diverse membership on boards and commissions, the way we program in a way that responds to the multicultural parts of our community. These are ways that we can be empathetic to other people and the town. We can take these positive steps. The second goal relates to community-driven policies and processes relating to law enforcement and the legal systems. Now, recently you had a small group present to you on this topic of race and law enforcement. Know that group is making progress, so I won't say more because you just heard a very good presentation on that very recently. The third goal is to reduce economic inequality and promote opportunity for all residents. Again, a big goal. What could we possibly do? Perhaps we can work even more with strong partners, institutions, nonprofits, et cetera, to create workforce development opportunities. We've worked with Youth Build recently, and we're trying to incorporate people from different backgrounds into all sorts of our services. We're fortunate to live in a place with a lot of resources, a lot of good partners out there that we work with, Illinois State being one of them, PATH being another one. We work with PATH on people who are having emergency housing needs, and PATH brings their expertise to the table. We bring our expertise and some money. It's a very efficient way to provide some very important services to people. We're not duplicating things. We're working together to make sure things are done efficiently. So this is a critical aspect of the plan, but probably one of the more amorphous to kind of get your head around and address head on. But there are definitely things we can do. The final element that we're going to talk about is community identity. And this is something the town definitely has a handle on. We're not anywhere USA. We never were. We still aren't, and we're a somewhere. People know us across the country. You look out the window and you see Uptown Circle, and that's probably our signature piece right now. But it's taken a lot of work. It's taken a lot of community. It's taken vision. It's taken a lot of leadership from people like you and people who preceded you. It's taken a lot of time and money and effort, and I would say it's well worth it. So we know how to do that, and we need to keep doing it. The first goal in this chapter is to celebrate what's special about us, whether it's the historical aspects, the cultural aspects, but we need to build that into our community identity into the future. Aside from talking about Uptown Normal as a place with a clear community identity, we can also look at other amazing things that the council has been doing in previous years or in recent years, including the Van Leer Mansion. That's a special place. It's something that adds to our community identity. Had we not stepped in and partnered, we probably would have lost a beautiful property. It would have been, the tower would have been torn down, the property would have been redeveloped into additional housing units, and so I think that's a successful partnership we can look to. We can look at what the town did in Uptown Normal years ago with the Normal Theater. Part of our identity, it's a special place. We invested in it, and it's amazing. Constitution Trail, probably our signature park in this community, and 27 years ago, if people like you hadn't stuck your necks out, that would have just been sold off to every adjacent landowner. And instead, today, we have an amazing, amazing linear park. This is all about creating an identity and preserving public spaces. It's something that's going to be increasingly important in the future as people try to find a place to live, try to find a place to start a business. They want to do it somewhere special. And we are special, and we can continue to focus on what makes us special. The second goal is about using public spaces as a canvas to show off what we do best. Again, placemaking is something we know. We have a picture of Uptown Circle on the screen, but I would say to you, look at Maxwell Park, look at Anderson, look at Fairview. And these are amazing places. Look at the new fire headquarters or the building we're in today. We take pride in our public spaces, and it shows, and that's something that people appreciate, and it helps us stick out. Sometimes people just don't appreciate what it is about Normal that makes us far more than normal, whether it's because we're a circus town, a railroad town, a university town. We have a lot to work with, and this chapter really challenges us to keep that at the forefront as we make our decisions going forward.
So Mercy Light, that was not the last element. We have one more. Just kidding. So infrastructure and public safety, as you probably have heard many times now, compact, contiguous growth. Honestly, this is the chapter that really kind of helps us understand how we can go about that. I don't think it'd be too surprising for you if I said our infrastructure funding gap right now is unsustainable. Like, we cannot keep building out and be able to fund that. And what do we mean by infrastructure in this particular chapter? It's not just what town owns and operates, but also infrastructure that's owned and operated by other entities like our school districts and electrical utilities or other utilities. So the compact and contiguous development is key for town sustainability, but also overall sustainability. The goal here is to keep what we have in good condition. So what did this, there is quite a bit of detail, but one thing that's important about this chapter is individual systems within this chapter have extensive plans of their own, extensive master plans of their own. So this chapter concentrated on analysis, particularly surrounding how can we achieve that compact and contiguous growth to really become that complete, connected, and compact community. So what you're seeing here is a map of the development tiers that really looks at existing infrastructure and identifies growth and development priorities. The tier 1 here is particularly focused on infill and redevelopment and sites that are surrounded by the town with existing infrastructure. When we say existing infrastructure, all major infrastructure systems. And tier 2 is those systems, those sites that are adjacent or contiguous to the town, but may require some additional investment by the developer. And tier 3 are contiguous, but definitely requires additional infrastructure from the town. And so these provide a good guideline for growth prioritization as we move forward with these lofty goals. So this section here, planning framework, it is a new to our planning comprehensive plan vocabulary. So what does planning framework mean? This, if you're trying to compare this plan to the previous plan, planning framework really essentially means land use planning. So we've heard a lot of lofty goals throughout this process, many of which you can't argue with. But how does that translate into growth and development, physical growth and development of the community, which is a big purpose of why we're going through this exercise. So if you think about it, the words complete, connected, and compact, complete with neighborhoods that provide variety of housing choices for people of all backgrounds, active lives, streets that support active lifestyles, and centers that become destinations for all. Connected physically, socially, and technologically, where it fosters collaboration and interaction among Normalites and the global world. And definitely compact, which is fiscally sustainable, fiscally and environmentally sustainable, and is a key for promoting a walkable, bikeable community. So in the past, if you looked at the land use plan, it talked about uses and not so much about geographies. So low density residential, medium density residential, high density residential. That makes it extremely hard for us to translate these lofty goals into physical growth and development. So this plan takes a completely different approach and looks at systems more holistically and divides them more by geographies and their function, and not so much by individual use. So these goals then translate into Based on geographies, these goals then translate into what is it that we are seeking, so it provides some flexibility. So I'm now going to turn it back to Mercy to kind of explain how this approach will help her as we move forward with implementation.
Yes, I mean, if you can picture the maps from the 2005, 2006 plan, basically it showed existing normal with the boundary around it and really not much happening in there. Like, it's already done. We didn't talk too much about what was already within our boundaries, with some exceptions. Like, we knew we had to do some special planning along Main Street and in Uptown, so there were exceptions. But for the most part, what was done was done. And then the rest of the map was just like, well, where are we going from here? You know, where are we going to have our new neighborhood centers? Whoa, did I just turn myself off? Sorry. Where would we have new community center, neighborhood centers, and where would residential be? Where would industrial be? It was kind of, not going to say cookie cutter. It really was. It was the standard at the time, and it was perfectly fine. But the thought was we were just going to pretty much keep growing like we were. So this plan is a definite departure from this. This is very much about looking at boundaries now, what is still left to be done on the inside of our boundaries, where are the opportunities. So this plan, I think, sets us up for prioritizing more effectively based on our new goals. It also provides a lot of flexibility moving forward. It does focus on these geographies and it doesn't just plan out into the farmland around us. And it's also, it focuses on what's established already and new neighborhoods. I mean, because, you know, face it, there are lots of new neighborhoods that are half built or, you know, just partly built. So we still have to focus on those as well. When we're going to look at all of this in conjunction with the growth priorities that Vasu talked about, tier 1, 2, and 3, and as a total package, then I think that's going to give us a lot of direction and flexibility.
All right, so the big question, implementation. So I'll be the first one to admit that over the last 2 years, we worked very hard for this report to take this form. However, I think that's the easy part. So now the implementation is going to be hard work for all of us together. What I will urge both the audience now and the readers of this document is to not really be intimidated by the volume. This is a 20-year plan. We absolutely have to prioritize in chunks. And this plan has not been created with the current fiscal conditions in mind. It absolutely takes those into account. So it takes those into account, but it's not limited by those. Why? Because these conditions are bound to change. We want those to change. If this plan succeeds, those will change. So we urge both the audience now and the readers of this plan to not just look at this plan from that perspective. So prioritization of geographies has been done in this plan to some extent. Prioritization of actions has been identified, but we've recognized that further prioritization as part of strategic planning processes need to happen. The second big thing I'd like to highlight is alignment of regulations and incentives. Majority of our regulations today were really geared more towards estuaries. We need to examine those closely to see if they're aligned with the future that we want. Progress, anybody who got a chance to thumb through this probably saw a lot of metrics in here. Many of those really are simple metrics. They are not complicated metrics by any means, but unless we measure progress, we will not be able to attain some of these goals. And that's where the technology piece comes in. And last but not the least, collaboration, both horizontally across departments, so this cannot be a planning department's plan, and vertically across agencies, both public agencies, not-for-profits, and many of them who are listed in this plan as partners. So this is definitely the regional that I wanted you to listen for throughout this process is absolutely critical. Those collaborations are absolutely critical to achieve the goals of this plan. So next steps, we will be publishing this plan tomorrow. And the plan is available, physical copies are available at Normal Public Library as well as Town Clerk's office. We hope to bring this to Planning Commission on November 9th, where we want to have more extensive discussion about the planning framework. And hopefully, and this is definitely not set in time, the November 20th is not set yet, but tentatively, if everything goes as planned, we want to bring it back to you on November 20th. That doesn't mean that we have to. We are absolutely open for public input from this point forward. So with that, any questions?
Thank you for that presentation. That was really amazing. As you said, it's a bold plan, but it's a doable plan, I think, for this community. The overarching pieces of this, I think, are really reflect well on some of the work that has been done in the community and what people want to see from this plan. So, are there questions? Anyone have any questions? You've left them mute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful job.
Yeah, I would just commend not only you guys, but it was so impressive, not only the council taking leadership, but the way you involved so many sectors of the community. And having sat in some of those meetings, there were some difficult issues that came up, but they were dealt with in a very responsive and not a defensive way. And all of you worked very hard on that, but it really was a superb effort. To me, as you just said, you guys have laid a beautiful foundation and a framework. This really is a challenge to the community as a whole to how do we make it happen and keep. Maybe we need a refresher every year to the Planning Commission or something to say, how are we meeting the goals on this? So it doesn't just become a document on the shelf, but we do an annual review as a commission, reporting to the council and coming back again to say, look, here's where we're making progress. Here's some things, boy, we were totally wrong. And here's some pieces that still need work. Thank you.
Mr. Fritzen.
Yeah. When you say 2040, it sounds like a long ways off. And when I spoke briefly last week to greet the class taking the Town of Normal class, talked about how Uptown Normal is a 20-year-old plan. 2040 is 23 years away. That's not that far off. This isn't like some futuristic thing that none of us will ever see. Some of us might not, but I may still be on the council then. I don't know. But I think if you have to have that perspective on it, that yeah, there's a lot here. There's a lot. Several times in the presentation, you go, so how do we make that happen? Well, here's some ideas. And the thing is, none of it will happen tomorrow. None of it's going to happen overnight. But if we just look back, the 1990s is 20 to 25 years ago already. And it doesn't seem like that. And so, we take it off in chunks. You take it off a little bit at a time. And I think, Mike, to your point, all the visioning plans that the town has done from back when Mayor Harmon started us in the practice and has continued under two other mayors since then, those are things that have provided a framework for where the town has been going and where we're headed. But also, a lot of those things are incorporated into our annual review of city managers' objectives and in our strategic planning that we do. So there hasn't been a plan, any of those plans in the years we've been doing those, that have been on a shelf and just said, hey, nice work, it's really pretty, and we'll do it again in 10 years. It hasn't been that way, and I know, just from my kind of a new set of colleagues here for me, I know that won't happen, and so I commend you too on the work. There is a lot underlying here. There's a big list of people that have been involved to this point, but that's one of the hallmarks you mentioned, Vasu, of involving more and more people, more and more citizens to help build that diversity and be able to address the needs of different groups of people, and that's kind of exciting. And I think it is unlike any comprehensive plan I've seen, but it's really kind of brought together a lot of the different plans that have been done over the last 20 to 30 years, and kind of let's land there with this thing instead of doing those in a comprehensive plan and several different plans. Bringing that bringing those all together and syncing them together really is it's a model, I think, for this type of thing. Thanks.
Mr. McBride.
Well, excuse me. I'd like to congratulate you as well, not only for the plan itself, but also just keeping this group of people relatively quiet. That is an accomplishment in and of itself. This is bold, but it's also responsible. And I'll probably wind up echoing some comments from my colleagues here, but Vasu, how many people originally participated in the first survey going back a couple of years? It was
Over 1,800.
yeah, and every single person that filled out that survey, and all the people listed here and all the entities listed here, took part in this process. I mean, this was really a community-wide effort, and that's, I mean, what's better about an entire community planning an entire community's own future? So it's very exciting, and I hope you don't take offense at our lack of questions, but it is a lot to digest, and I'm sure we'll have some eventually, but just great work. Congratulations.
Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you again, echoing the congratulations and really the heartfelt thanks for all of the work. 3 words come to mind as I kind of read this and listened is inclusive, comprehensive, and contemporary. And clearly my colleague, Mr. McBride, highlighted the inclusive nature of all the work that you guys have done, and sitting in some of the rooms and participating along the way to see the diversity of thought and perspective that you brought to the room is, I think, been the hallmark and cornerstone of a lot of the planning that the mayor talked about earlier and Mr. Fritzen talked about earlier, and that we hope he'll help us continue to press into the future. But contemporary, as we talk about how comprehensive this is, we start to look at some of the technology issues and some of the things that, although sound very futuristic, are actually happening now. Data security, data analytics, some of the things that are happening right next door in our university are very cutting edge. But to the social issues at hand, even as we travel around and go to some conferences we're hearing, these topics are the discussion of cities that are much bigger, much larger tax bases, much more forward-thinking than we sometimes think ourselves to be. But this puts us squarely right at the front edge of some of those initiatives for keeping us a vital, progressive place where people want to live into the future that we can actually sustain, given the economic picture in the state of Illinois and here locally. So bravo. Thanks very much for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Ms. Lorenz.
So give us long enough and we'll come up with questions. First of all, I'll just echo what everybody else is saying. This is a fantastic and amazing plan, and I guess 2 words that come to my mind to describe it is award-winning. I hope it does. Not that's why you not that is why you do something like this, but boy, it's amazing. So kudos to you, Vasu, and your team, and I want to underscore something that Mr. McBride said, and that you offered the 1,800 participants way back a year plus ago that participated in the online surveying. And let's not lose sight of that. Let's make sure that we bring that back up to the headlines, so to speak. That this really has been a process whereby we have included the voices of our community. So, and as we may begin as we would begin to work it, continue to have public input and so forth. So definitely highlight that again. Here's my question, and it's a bold question, I suppose, may put you a bit on the spot. Somebody or one of all of you have said something about regional, that this is a regional approach. I know you've done something similar for Bloomington, correct, and provided them their results. So if Vasu had the magic wand and you were queen for the day, you know where I'm going on this, okay? How would you recommend that we, each municipality, and perhaps you want to go further and talk about, you know, at a county-wide or even a region-wide, how would you envision that we take this, work what we can that's within our confines of our municipality, but at the same token, really embrace that regional aspect? What would you do?
First of all, I have to thank you for asking this question and providing me an opportunity to dream big here.
Okay, get the magic wand out.
Ideally, if I was queen for the day, I would have loved to create a regional plan, a one plan for both Bloomington and Normal together. And I would offer this, anytime when we talk about regional plan, I think there is something that kind of makes us feel like this is going to be a big, broad brush strokes. What I hope that these plans for both Bloomington and Normal have expressed is both communities are different. And even within each of those communities, every neighborhood is different. And any good plan is going to be sensitive of that. But by creating a regional plan, we'll all be going in the same direction, one plan where all of us work for the same goals. Definitely taking into account being sensitive to the individual needs of geographies and policies within those communities. So if I was really queen for the day, that would be my dream, a regional plan. And hopefully that'll be the case soon, one of these years.
So if I can summarize it, if what I heard you say is honor the differences and be sensitive to those differences across the two communities, but work towards common goals.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Further questions, or Mr. Peterson?
Sorry, I can't resist. First of all, congratulations, 45 minutes right on the nose. They worked hard to keep it at 45 minutes. Follow up on your question. Vasu and I had this very conversation at the outset of our process. Do we try to pursue a broader regional? And it was, I think we both came to the conclusion that it wasn't the right time, and that we probably needed to do our own plan, but with a regional perspective in that plan. And I think this plan does take a regional approach. There were lots of people that were involved that aren't residents of Normal. Some are business owners, but a lot of people from Bloomington and the county were involved in this process, and we're proud of that, and it's appropriate. I do think we are on a trajectory to begin to think about a regional plan that goes countywide, not just Bloomington Normal, but county, and I think that's the direction we need to go, and I think that's our hope. I want to just talk a minute about the document, and there were comments made. There were hundreds, even thousands of people involved in terms of providing input. But that is one heck of a plan. It is, the word comprehensive is appropriate. It's the most thorough, detailed, inclusive plan that I've ever seen, and I've been around a long time. Certainly, by far, the most robust, comprehensive plan, by far, that we've ever been associated with. And that plan was done by a handful of dedicated people. I mean, a very, very small staff, and they're out there. Congratulations. That's 2 years of intense work, and that's not the only thing they had to do in 2 years. They had all the other stuff they do on a regular basis to complete, and this comes on the heels of going through a similar process with the city of Bloomington. An extraordinary accomplishment, a plan that is visually, I think, stimulating and is loaded with detail and analysis at a high level, that was basically created with lots of input, but the hard, heavy lifting was a handful of people. I think you have 6 people in your department, on your team, and certainly Mercy was highly involved, but they did all the work, and that is amazing. This is a document that we could go out and hire a planning firm, that's all they do, a large planning firm, and it would be at least $100,000, probably double that. And I don't know, I think we paid you $4 maybe 5. There's a little bit of money, but not much money. So kudos to Vasu and your outstanding staff. And I know they're looking forward to a breather, because they've been working for 4 years on comprehensive planning, and it has been intense. And, you know, I appreciate the effort, and you really delivered a first-class document. You're right. It's now, as far as the town staff, we're going to have to step up, because there is a lot of work to be done there. And we're ready. I think we can tackle it. We've got a few more people than you've got, Vasu, so I think we're prepared to do it. But I just want to congratulate Vasu and her staff for just an unbelievable job. That is a plan that I would put up against any plan in the country. And they did it for little of nothing in terms of cost to us. And they did it with a very, very small but dedicated and capable staff. So thank you. Thank you. Good job.
Absolutely.
Further comments or questions? I think we'll take a break here then, and we will be back here at 7:25 for a Liquor Commission meeting, and then 7:30 council meeting, and we're going to go turn some lights on here in a few minutes. Thank you all for coming, and